In this world, outside of the humanoids, living existences with flesh could largely be divided into animals and magical beasts. Animals were those who were not influenced by mana and maintained their appearances, whereas magical beasts were those who had been transformed after being influenced. And ordinarily speaking, in terms of strength, magical beasts outclassed said animals. For example, if a domestic cat and a tiger were to fight, one would not need to think too hard to figure out that the tiger would come out victorious. However, if that cat was transformed under the influence of mana, it might very well turn out to be the winner. A transformation with mana had the capacity to bring out powers within animals which would otherwise have never been able to awaken such powers. Nevertheless, in the world of Midgard, there were monsters among animals which blatantly ignored such a fundamental concept. And those were the dinosaurs. These ancient monsters had long existed in this world far before the humanoids came to being. With complete disregard to the phenomenon called mana, they were fearful monsters which screamed that the strong were called strong because they were strong, and saw all those around themselves as nothing more than prey. Humanoids were its prey, magical beasts were its prey, others of its own kind were its prey, and even the demons were its prey. It was a naturally strong existence which saw everything else as its target for predation. That was the carnivorous dinosaurs. As a consequence, in the world of Midgard, they were feared more than the demons and, in some ways, hated more than the demons. Although their numbers were dramatically reduced by Rupa's Moffel 200 years ago, they still existed up to this date and spread fear around the world. And even amongst those carnivorous dinosaurs, there were those that were particularly feared above the rest. The one who inhabited the north, Dinorex. The one who inhabited the west, Dinoacrocanth. The one who inhabited the east, Dinotarbo. And lastly, the one who inhabited the south, Dinogiganto too. Although there were numerous dinosaurs who were considered dangerous, the ones which were a head above the others on the danger scale were these four. And at this moment, one of those four was blocking the path while standing in front of SEI. Its length was approximately 13 meters and its weight was approximately 13 tons. Without a doubt, it was a monster. In comparison, our side consisted of two individuals, an inexperienced newbie hero and a young flugel girl. Looking at them from the sidelines, however one thought about it, it was not a situation where even a fight could be established. Even calling it reckless was too much of a leeway. Dinosaur vs Virgo and SEI. However, the predict.I.P.ants of the festival were not limited to these two individuals. After finding out about the existence of the dinosaur, several adventurers and travelers quickly came to aid SEI and Virgo. Phew, dinosaur, huh. I'll take care of it in 5 seconds. The full-body black-cloaked cool warrior stood at the front and drew his sword. Even the blade was jet black in color and showed off his bad taste. He continued to give off an atmosphere of a strong individual as his mantle fluttered around and brazenly approached Dinogiganto. Was this it? The scenario where an unknown and strong character suddenly and coolly entered and struck the enemy down? Under such expectations, SEI wished all the best to the pitch-black warrior. Under my justice, you shall wither. Secret sword technique, black shadow flowing blade. 3 pitch-black Sen shouted out some questionably cool-sounding technique in a low voice and swung at Dinogiganto. Subsequently, he was blown away somewhere by the tail whilst screaming, "Oof." The total duration was precisely 5 seconds long. What's the point of you getting taken care of in 5 seconds? Looks like it has some strength. Following pitch black, the bearded rabbit-eared wrestler-like muscular man went out in front whilst cracking his knuckles. Even after seeing the Dinogiganto's body and the instant KO which had just happened, he still did not falter. It was an atmosphere of a complete veteran who had absolute confidence in himself. And so he ran to the foot of the Dinogiganto and grabbed the thick foot with both of his arms. However, it did not move or even budge. He could not have thought he can throw the dinosaur around, could he? Well duh, there are things that are simply impossible. Think about the size first. As SEI was getting exasperated by such a dumb event, the foolish man was kicked away by the dinosaur and rolled away on the ground. His eyes rolled back, showing only whites for you weaklings. I'll show you how the fight should be done. And lastly, the bikini armor macho uncle stepped forward. Then he ran to the foot of the Dino Giganto and grabbed onto its thick foot. As I said, it's impossible. What were you even looking at? I'm begging you to think about the size first, you idiot. The stupid man, who did not learn from the previous guy, was kicked away by the Dino Giganto and merrily got knocked out together with the rabbit-eared man as if they were best friends. What did they even come here for, these guys? In the end, all SEI got to see was the strength of the dinosaur, which took the three of them out in a flash. As SEI felt astonished beyond words due to the pointlessness displayed by the three, he gripped his katana again and got ready for combat. Virgo also readjusted how she held her sword and prepared for battle against the Dino Giganto with a face full of nervousness. The dog-type magical beast tried to trot in front of the dinosaur without a care in the world. However, the fluid U.S.-tiered SEI quickly grabbed the dog and put it behind him before returning back into a battle stance. What was surprising at this moment was the Dino Giganto. SEI thought it would already have attacked him, however, for some reason, it was still in its position whilst surveying surveying Virgo intently to see what action she might take. Due to it living in the wild, perhaps it was sensitive to those that were strong. It had likely assessed Virgo, who looked weak, to be strong, and instinctively judged that it was not in its best interest to recklessly charge in. Gyaooooo. However, the Dino Giganto did not have the type of personality to wait and carefully assess things, even if the enemy turned out to be strong. The Dino Giganto's roar resounded throughout the entire area. At the same time, it spun on the spot and struck strongly with its tail. Its aim was Virgo, who was in the air. However, she quickly closed the distance at once whilst avoiding the tail slam and ducked towards the Dino Giganto's feet. A straight line. She sliced at one of its feet and flew back up into the sky, outside of its range. The Dino Giganto, which had one of its feet sliced, was unable to maintain its balance and fell down. Nevertheless, the slice did not amount to complete amputation. It got back up on its feet in a flash and looked up at the sky to glare at Virgo. Amazing. SEI could not help but be dazed, his jaw dropping in response to her fast movement, and he became fascinated by her charm. Gorgeous. Such sharp and quick movements. It was clear to SEI that she was incomparably leagues above the previously blown away pitch black San. In practice, Virgo was a full support type. What she just displayed was nothing more than a result of the difference in her level and status. Yet, SEI was lacking in level so much that he was unable to even notice such a thing. During the time SEI was being stupefied by her abilities due to his low level, Virgo and the Dino Giganto's fight continued. Virgo repeatedly sliced at the Dino Giganto using hit-and-run tactics. He wanted to assist her if he could, and as a man he felt shameful to just be looking at her fight from the side. Nevertheless, he was not stupid enough to not be able to figure out how he'll be nothing more than a burden if he helped her poorly. As a consequence, he gave up the idea of joining the fight using his sword. Instead, he took out a handkerchief from his pocket and wrapped nearby sand and gravel in it. He then threw it at the Dino Giganto's eyes the moment Virgo backed away from it. Gay. It's a diversion. It should have some effect, right? Ha, I'm really not acting anything like a hero. Although he was thinking such a thing, he told himself mentally that it was the best course of action he could take. Notwithstanding that his level was low, as a level 30, his physical ability was far above that of what he should normally have had. He had more than enough throwing strength to be able to throw a handkerchief ball filled with sand and gravel at the Dino Giganto. During the moment the Dino Giganto faltered, Virgo released a blade of light from the tip of her sword and dealt a deep wound on its body. When this happened, the Dino Giganto's rage flared and it persistently chased Virgo only. It seemed it had judged SEI to not be of any threat and had completely ignored him. It was a pitiful story. He had wanted to mock himself by asking, "Are you even a hero?" But works well for me. You lizard bastard. I am weak. And I'm aware of that. But just because I'm weak doesn't mean I can't do anything. SEI activated the hero skill light sword which he had recently acquired 5 for the subsequent attack. The weapon's attack power was doubled. Although SEI thought the skill in itself was quite lame, combined with the katana from the royal tomb of the Black Wing, he was able to change the lame skill into a magnificent skill which dealt significant damage. And the timing is, now. The moment the Dino Giganto took a large step to attack Virgo, SEI attacked at the ground where its foot was going to land. With this attack, SEI managed to create something similar to a pitfall that barely managed to fit the Dino Giganto's foot. As soon as the attack was released, SEI quickly retreated to create some distance. The attack that he made could not be any more shameful. It was by no means a way that a man called the hero should be fighting. Nevertheless, although its effect on the overall scheme of things was minimal, in this battle, his action was not without its value. The Dino Giganto's feet sank and it lost its balance, giving Virgo the opportunity to release an attack with all of her might. First, she flew up high and grabbed her sword with both of her hands, preparing to swing down widely. And then she descended rapidly. Trying to imitate the battle she previously saw between Rupas and Scorpius, she rapidly accelerated and slammed her sword with all of her might towards the head of the Dino Giganto. Furthermore, she activated La Pucelle's effect at this moment and bestowed the power of a light slash into the attack towards the head. Let me support you. Light sword. At that moment, SEI activated his skill and doubled the attack power of La Pucelle that Virgo held. Just as the name of the skill suggested, La Pucelle, which had turned into a sword of light, carved into the head of the Dino Giganto, causing it to gush out blood. And when the sword was swung down, the Dino Giganto's head down to the tip of its nose was cleanly sliced off. The Dino Giganto's giant body slanted to the side and collapsed downwards, creating a loud sound. It did not simply fall down this time. It had no sign of getting back up, nor did it show any signs of movement. Even when the dog-type magical beast whimsically got close and peed on it, it did not move at all. After seeing such a thing, SEI was able to truly feel that it had been defeated, causing SEI to tightly clench his own fist. I've won. He was not going to say such a presumptuous thing. The one who had won was the young girl, not him. Nevertheless, he was still able to feel happy that they had managed to overcome such a hurdle. Perhaps things had not yet registered into her brain, but the young girl was looking dumbfounded at the turnout. SEI ran to where she was and gave praise for her brave effort. You did it. You defeated this monster. This thing, it was defeated? Because Grandma said the dinosaurs are scary, I thought it is going to get back up and mutate or something. Mutate. Although this sounded like a broken record, Virgo was a frog which resided in the well. However, all of the friends it lived with were true monsters. A sheep which could turn into a giant, a full-body weaponized golem, a scorpion which could turn into a giant, and a devil which could also turn into a giant. Although Crabsan had not turned giant up until now, it could probably also turn into one. As a consequence, she did not think that dinosaurs, which were said to be strong, could be finished with such a degree of attacks. However, she had misunderstood things. SEI shook his arm around whilst thinking, that's impossible, and rejected what she was saying. Thanks. Your support really helped out. Well, I'm really happy you put it that way, but... yeah, I'm sorry I could only provide such a lame form of support. As he knew himself that he lacked strength, he did not believe he made a wrong decision. Notwithstanding that, what was pathetic remained pathetic. He could not determine, in what other world there would be a hero that entrusted the battle to a young girl whilst he himself threw sand around and dug holes in the ground. Even the fodder heroes, who served only as stepping stones in light novels, fought in a more dignified manner. Oh yeah, I still haven't told you my name yet. I'm SEI. Minami Jayaji SEI. 6 Minami Jayaji SEI. Oh, you have a strange name. SEI is my name. In my country, the first name and the family name are placed the other way around. Is that so? I'm Virgo. I don't have a family name. After mutually completing their self-introductions, they started having a conversation. Notwithstanding that they were tours within the same festival, they were still comrades who fought against the same ferocious enemy. Due to the two's personalities, They were not wary of one another and felt a pleasant feeling for each other. However, this action might have been a display of how inexperienced the two of them were. It was wrong of them to let their guard down simply because the enemy had stopped moving. The Dino Giganto, which had been lying down on the ground until this moment, opened its eyes and got right up as if it was jumping. Precisely. It was still not yet dead. Astanis.h.I plus ngly, even with its head cracked open, its vitality allowed it to continue functioning. Su. What, not dead? Although Virgo and SEI quickly turned their heads around to look towards it, the Dino Giganto's large mouth was already right in front of them. However, before its jaws could reach and close around them, a gust of wind blew past them. As soon as it happened, the Dino Giganto stopped moving on the spot. Its eyes rolled into its head and turned white. This time, for certain, it had died. It collapsed straight onto the floor. For Virgo and SEI, it simply looked as if the dinosaur suddenly got up then immediately died. They wondered what it was, but had no way of figuring out what had happened. What just happened? I don't know. Maybe it got up but finally ran out of power? Dam.n, it really scared me. For now, they A.S. that it had used up the last of its strength. After A.S. summing this, the two decided to leave the location before anything else happened. Asterisk. Looks like you managed it, Libra. At this moment, I was flying in the sky some distance above the audience seats whilst crossing my arms and acknowledging Libra. Next to me, Libra, who was holding a sniper rifle, was looking through its scope silently. Once I had found out that a dinosaur had come out, the action I decided on was to take Libra out and give the order to snipe it down. Although I did not think that Virgo would fall behind the dinosaur due to her level, I also knew that she barely had any actual combat experience. We could not afford a 1 in a million chance situation. Therefore, as precaution against any possible mishaps, we had been on standby in the air in order to be able to provide support instantly. And as expected, Libra had sniped the dinosaur down as I was hoping she would. Yeah, she's definitely reliable, isn't she? Libra. It was not me. Libra answered without showing any expression as she rejected my A.S. assumption. Though it was the same expression as always. According to Libra, it was not her that had finished off the dinosaur. However, in this day and age, there were not many individuals who could achieve such a feat at that moment. I looked towards her and waited for what she was going to say. Before my bullet could reach the enemy, some other individual released an arrow and pierced it through the head. The bullet I fired merely pierced through the corpse. Who was it? I do not know. However, in this day and age, there are a very limited number of individuals who could achieve such a feat. Libra stored the rifle away and answered as she looked into the distance. With above 50% certainty, I believe Archer is in the vicinity. Sagittarius, is it? Yes. A disturbance might have been inbound even in a country I had visited to take a breather. Whether this constant I.toot as good luck or bad luck, I did not know. However, it seemed that turmoil really favored me. __. Chapter 77. As the hunting festival ended without further incident, Virgo returned with a spectacular victory. This was natural because of her level, but she should have more confidence in herself now. I felt like I did something horrible to the other predict.I.p.ants, but if Virgo was not there, people would surely have been eaten by the dinosaur, so I guessed this made it somewhat even. Anyway, we would be having a victory celebration tonight. It would be a modest celebration using the dishes made by Libra, Dina, and Karkinos. It didn't really matter, but I would not be cooking. It wasn't that I couldn't cook, but I only knew how to throw in some ingredients to make simple dishes like fried rice. Honestly, it would look kind of bad. On the other hand, there could be no complaints about the dishes made by Dina and the others, be it in terms of taste or appearance. What bothered me was that Libra actually tried taste testing the food. As a golem, how did she even tell the tastes apart? I don't know the taste, but the sensor on my tongue can A.N.A. the components. Thus, it would be possible to select the seasoning that Rapasama likes the most by comparing with past data. What exactly was a golem? Mizar, you were trying too hard. It felt like he had advanced golem technology by 100 years. It was weird. A golem was supposed to be an autonomous lump of rock or metal, so how did it become an android? Okay, the K.S.Serol is here. Dina gave a beaming smile and put the pot in front of us. With a whole pot's worth, we had quite the luxurious meal today. This must be the French dish known as a K.S.Serol. I remembered this dish involved mixing chopped vegetables, meat, and cheese in a soup, which was then cooked in an oven using a heat-resistant container. Having said that, it was as one would have expected from a different world. There were ingredients that could not be found here, in Midgard, and also others which were used that could not be acquired there, in J.A.Pan. The oven was not a high-performance type like what was available on the other side. Instead, it was an old type built with bricks. The result looked like a K.S.Serol, but was actually something else. There were so many similarities that it gave off an eerie feeling. It was as if technology and knowledge of the other side were flowing in and being utilized. Was I overthinking this? For now, I should just ask about it. Dina, this is K.S.Serol. It is a typical home-cooked dish in Draupnir. Its definition is somewhat ambiguous, since it is considered a K.S.Serol as long as you dump meat and vegetables into a pot and cook it. That's kind of sketchy. It's a dish from the country of the Beastkin. The K.S.Serol I knew of was more clearly defined than this, but it did not seem to be the case here. Simply put, under Draupnir's definition, whatever was cooked in a pot was considered a K.S.Serol. It did not matter how it was made or what ingredients were used. This was like an inferior imitation. It was as if the concept was given to people who knew nothing of it, resulting in an inferior imitation that came to be spread as the genuine thing. No, there was actually a setting like that in the game. Most of the dishes and technology of this world were provided by the G.O.Dis to the humanoids, so the humanoids had not done much in terms of invention or trial and error. This was originally the excuse that the administrators prepared for the meta question posed by players: if this is a different world, why is it so similar to Earth? But perhaps, the flow of knowledge and technology from Earth into this world was actually real. It was not impossible. After all, it had already been proven by the fact that a person from Earth could be brought over through the use of X-Gate. Even with that, to a beastkin, this is considered fanciful food. Even though it's so sloppy. Yes. Beastkin have very strong stomachs. They usually eat some lightly cooked meat or vegetables. In severe situations, they would even eat it raw. It was fine to eat it raw. In regards to this, I guess they really were animals. I listened to Dina's explanation as I ate the K.S.Serol. No, K.S.Serol. It tasted a little like gratin. It wasn't bad. Well, this had been somewhat modified to make it easier for us to eat. Originally, it would probably taste a lot more random and crude. So what are the plans for tomorrow? Karkanos asked while P.A.S. Sing the fruit juice to Virgo. Agacaros and I had wine instead. Although I did not drink much on Earth, I found it quite delicious after gaining this body. I sipped a bit to moisten my throat and answered him. I originally planned to leave Draupnir, but I'm changing the plan. Since I've found out that the archer may be nearby, I intend to stay and search for a while. Yes. Tomorrow, we will split up and search. That dam.n horse. Adding more troubles onto Rapasama's hands. He should have rushed over to present himself as a loyal servant. Although Karkanos did not seem to mind the archer much, Agacaros was considerably dissatisfied. Uninhibited by the liquor, he was ranting about being a loyal servant. Was he drunk already? This was just the first GLA.S.S. Tomorrow, let's split up in groups of 2. As for the grouping, let's see. Dina and I, Libra and Karkanos, Aries and Virgo, and finally Agacaros and Scorpius. What? No way. When I divided everyone into groups, Scorpius, who had been sitting beside me regardless of her being a nuisance, made an expression as if it was the end of the world. She then glared at Dina in anger, while grinding her teeth. On the other hand, Dina's face turned blue under her gaze as she shed cold sweat. Rapasama, I wish to make a change. If this goes on, I will be a.s.sa.s. Scorpius-sama. Oh, Let's do it like this then. Dina and Agakeros will be one group. Scorpius will come with me. What should I do? Scorpius was seriously annoying. Back in a good mood again, Scorpius held onto my arm and pressed her cheek against me. Anyway, I decided to conclude tonight's meeting. All that remained was to take a bath and then go to sleep. It wasn't important, but I would always reject Scorpius, who continually came running to wash my back. I felt that something bad would happen if I let her in with me. Sometimes when I was in the bath, she would sneak into the dressing room and then get caught by Libra. She always insisted on using the bath after me, so Libra had to replace the bath water and clean the bathroom immediately after. Sometimes, when I woke up in the middle of the night, I would see Scorpius hanging from the ceiling after being caught by Libra. Somehow, Libra was so reliable that I couldn't do without her anymore. Now, if only she wasn't a pankotsu herself. I thought as I looked at Libra. She looked at the door as if she noticed something. Master, it seems that there is someone outside Tanaka. Based on body temperature and breathing, that person seems to be quite nervous, but I do not sense any hostility. Shall I get rid of the person? Libra said as she equipped a machine gun. Why did she suddenly turn the conversation towards getting rid of things? She just said that she did not sense any hostility, so how did she logically arrive at the conclusion to get rid of the person? No, it's fine. Let's hear what the person has to say. It was common sense to communicate first if there was no hostility. I hid my wings under my cloak, while Dina went over. In such situations, Dina was more suitable than a weird person like me. With a pat sound, she walked briskly over to the door and opened it. There was a bipedal fox, no, it was a fox beastkin. Beastkin had faces like those of the animals of their types, so it was usually embarrassed.s.sing to be cute. Anyway, I wonder if fox beastkin could be infected by a echinococcus. I thought that it should be possible. Con. Please speak in the common tongue of Midgard. Oh, yes. The fox beastkin-san started off with a cute cry, however, after unexpectedly receiving Dina's cold and cement-hard rebuke, it started speaking normally. Maybe that was its attempt at a joke or something. Due to the cold response, its ears were drooping. It should be okay to address as it, right? After all, it was difficult to determine the gender of a beastkin. Well, is there anyone on this list here? Do you mind if you show me the list? Here you go. Dina took the name list and came back, leaving Fox-san behind. Fox-san must have found the camping car unusual as it was looking inside with s.h.I plus 15 glances. I received the list from Dina and looked through the names. There were many unimpressionable names, such as Bikini Muscle, Shadow, Bunny Dandy, and SEI. However, Virgo's name was right at the top. Were these the names of the winners of the hunting festival? What's this? I don't know the details, but I'm visiting the top rankers around due to the Emperor's order. If it is convenient, please come to the Southern Warriors yurt tomorrow at 10 in the morning. What is the reason for the summon? I'm sorry, but as a mere messenger, I do not know the reason. However, it is not compulsory. If you feel like it, please come. Apparently, Fox-san was just running errands. None of my questions were answered, but since Libra did not say anything, it was not lying. If you feel like it, huh? Speaking on the Emperor's order would imply that this was an imperial summon. No matter what one's nationality might be, if one were to ignore the summon, things would become difficult for travelers and adventurers in this country. In the future, one could expect almost no request from this country. This was practically optional in name, but compulsory in fact. Well, we could ignore it as much as we liked though. Well then, what was this about? If the summon was for me or Libra, or anyone else other than Virgo, we would have answered it without hesitation. Even if there were schemes or traps prepared in advance, we could still forcefully break through them. But what about Virgo? Level 300 was certainly exceptional in this era, but she was not invincible. There were individuals, such as the 7 luminaries, who could challenge or even defeat Virgo. For example, the demon that I once defeated with one punch. If Virgo fought him, she might lose. Although this invitation was not necessarily hostile, it would be better to be cautious. Virgo, let's hear your opinion. After thinking it through, I decided to respect Virgo's opinion. If she wanted to go, we would support her. If she did not want to go, then I would take care of it. If the emperor complained, I would deal with it. Fortunately, things like authority had little effect on us. I think I will go. After all, it is a rare invitation. Besides, I want to do something if it is possible. Virgo seemed enthusiastic. In that case, we would support her to the best of our abilities. Although I just made changes to the plan, I had to change it again. Let's remove Aries from the search and assign him to support Virgo. It would not be a bad idea to listen in on the Emperor's conversation until Dina and I could ascertain if there was any danger. I understand. That's how it is, Messenger. Please tell him that Virgo will take part. Yes, I will certainly do so. Hearing my reply, Messenger Fox-san ran off in a good mood. Its tail couldn't help but wag as it moved along. It probably ran off to search for the other ants. How energetic. For now, let's sleep early to prepare for tomorrow. Therefore, don't take too long in the bath. I will also finish as soon as possible. Rupa-sama, today for sure, you're back, unnecessary. I hoped that the Emperor did not invite us with malicious intent. I did not want to cause a commotion by making an enemy out of an entire country. Chapter 78. An exceptionally large tent stood amidst the built-up dwellings, yurt. The winners of the hunting festival stood within, waiting for the reason why they were summoned by the Emperor. Sei was there as well, looking around while trying to kill some time. Of course, as the top winner, the white-winged girl was here, but even the pervert in bikini armor and the pretentious guy in all black were here too. So they were in the top ranks, Sei thought while feeling somewhat uncomfortable. The one in all black. Was he always this short? For some reasons, he was wearing sunglasses. That was rather strange. However, Sei did not really know him, so he decided not to voice his suspicions. In fact, his discomfort was justified because the guy in black was actually not the same person as before. The real guy was still unconscious in the inn due to being salted yesterday. The one impersonating him here was Aries. He was wearing a black wig and a costume created by Rupas. Of course, Sei did not know any of this, so he brilliantly overlooked it. Several minutes later, a small cat beastkin appeared in the tent. His height was about 130 centimeters. He was basically a bipedal tabby cat wearing small armor, making him appear somewhat funny. However, when he entered, the beastkin soldiers saluted all at once. Apparently, he held a high position, contrary to his appearance. He glanced at the assembled warriors and gave a slight cough. Everyone, I'm a cat. This much was obvious. Surely, everyone present had the same thought. Contrary to his appearance, his voice was rather rough. It was often said that it was difficult to differentiate between the genders of beastkin, but this one was apparently male. I am Kainko, the commander of the warriors of Dropnir. Brave ones, you have gathered today according to the summons. The battles during the hunting festival yesterday were spectacular. His Majesty was very pleased. At that moment, Sei suddenly felt the urge to complain. What is with that silly name? Is he trying to be the funny man? Is he waiting for someone to retort back with a straight man's response? But when he glanced around, Body had any reaction to that name. A sudden feeling of loneliness salted Sei. Is it only me? Am I the only one who thinks it is funny? As Sei thought this, Kainko rubbed his face with his hand and continued speaking. You have been summoned today because we hope that you can lend your strength to this country. No, to be precise, it's not an exaggeration to say that this hunting festival was held to search for strong warriors. In other words, this is a request from Dropnir. Yes. It was a small muscular man who asked Kainko. He had a messy beard and carried an axe. He's probably a dwarf, SEI thought. This is the first time that I've seen one. This is a formal request from Dropnir. Of course, a reward will be prepared. Once the request is met, we promise to reward all predict.i.p.ants with 1,000 arrow. And the person who brings back what we want will be rewarded with 500,000 arrow. Of course, the others will also be given the highest honors. 500,000 arrow. These words changed the looks on everyone's faces except for SEI, Virgo, and the black-cloaked guy. This was an exceptional reward for adventurers. If one was not too wasteful, it would be enough to live off it for more than 10 years. Furthermore, even if one did not acquire the target, as long as he predict.i.p.aided, he would be rewarded with 1,000 arrow and a place of honor. This alone made it worth the while to predict.i.p.8. Future adventures would be easier and one's name would become famous. So what should we be looking for? I'd like you to go to the spiritual peak Knipjorg and retrieve the elixir stored there. When Virgo asked her question, Kinko revealed the ident.i.ti of the target item. When SEI heard this, the screen of a recent large-scale RPG came to his mind. Since it would be a waste to use, the elixir was always left in the inventory while resorting to cheap potions and recovery magic instead. Before the player realized it, the final battle was over and there were still dozens of elixirs waiting to be used. This was a common situation. For SEI, the elixir was like a decorative flower within his inventory. He would be anxious if he didn't have it, but he would not use it even though he had it. That was essentially what an elixir was. But in contrast to SEI, the item's name was Astanis.h.i plus ng to the natives of this world. Everyone was agitated and raised their voices in disbelief. Elixir? Hey, stop joking. That is a legendary miracle drug that was lost because of the Demon King 200 years ago. Indeed, but the miracle drug is real. Our great founder, the Beast King Dubhe, kept the miracle drug in Knipjorg. As he listened to the story, Ares remembered the raid on the royal tomb. The legendary miracle drug, the elixir, was a miraculous item that only some alchemists could make. It was one of the highlights of alchemy more than 200 years ago, produced by the joint research of Rupas Moffel and Migres the Wisdom King. It was a first-grade medicine that could heal all wounds, completely recover mana, cure diseases, and even prolong life. There was a pile of them in the royal tomb, Ares thought as he looked into the distance. His master had said, I was preparing to use them someday, but before I realized it, they weren't used and the number of them had increased significantly, or something like that. Of course, they were all recovered and were now stored in Moffel Tower. There were 43 bottles. If all of them were sold, it would yield a terrifying amount of money that could buy the entire living S.P.A.ce of the humanoids. It was said that the Demon King destroyed all the extant elixirs, so now they had disappeared from the world. Only the royal tomb guarded by Libra was overlooked. Of course, you are not allowed to run away with it. If you do so, you may consider this entire country to be your enemy. The elixir was the most valuable miracle drug. If it was sold, the price would not just be 50,000 arrow. It might even be 10 times this amount. Therefore, it would not be strange if some people got greedy, but doing so would make an enemy out of the entire country. After emphasizing this carefully, Kinko continued his explanation. But there may be some who would be unsatisfied with this. Therefore, we promise that we will share the elixir with the person who brings it back, albeit only a small amount. With that said, Kinko showed everyone a small, really small bottle that could be handled with one's fingertips. That was the amount they were prepared to give. It was just a small bottle that was about 5 centimeters long, but it was enough to excite the adventurers. Although it was only a mouthful, its value was immeasurable. It could heal all kinds of wounds, cure all manner of diseases, and even extend the lifespans of people nearing the end of their lives by several years or even a decade. This was the effect of the elixir. However, Ares remembered Dina complaining, there are too many, while collecting the 43 large bottles of elixir, each of which contained 3 liters. If this scene was shown to the people here, they would surely faint. Why do you need something like that? The guardian dragon Sama, who is the key to the protection of this country, suddenly had a serious illness. We need the elixir as a cure. If used correctly, the ultimate miracle drug could turn the tide of war. For example, if Migres drank it, he would be able to walk again. If Merak drank it, his lost wing would regenerate. Even if they could not remove the curse of the Demon King, the 7 heroes could change the current war situation by regaining fully functional bodies. And surely, the Demon King must have destroyed all of the elixirs in order to prevent this. Perhaps he aided this, so he kept it somewhere safe. And now was the time to use the miracle drug. If the guardian dragon Sama falls, our country would be destroyed by the demons. The elixir is necessary to prevent this. The revitalization of the guardian dragon. Without it, there would be no tomorrow for Draupnir. Sei gulped at the unforeseen crisis. He engraved into his heart that this was a request that would determine the survival or doom of a country. But at the same time, Sei considered the possibilities. If he successfully completed this request and acquired the elixir, he could give it to Migres. Perhaps this could lead to the revitalization of the Wisdom King, one of the 7 heroes who could turn the tides of war alone by himself. Thus, he summoned the courage to ask an important question. I want to ask one thing, can that amount cure legs which have been paralyzed? It's possible. If the legs were completely lost, it might not be enough. But if it was just legs that could not move, then it could certainly be cured. The fires of motivation lit up in Sei's eyes. The miracle drug, the elixir, this was something he must obtain by all means. If it could restore the Wisdom King to a healthy body, it was well worth the risk to take on this request. On the other hand, Ares knew of this long ago. However, he did not mention it to Rupaz because he thought it would be a waste to use the elixir on the people who betrayed his master. And since Rupaz did not say that she wanted to give the elixirs to the 7 heroes, he interpreted it to mean that she had not forgiven those traitors. Of course, he had never thought of the truth, that Rupaz had treated the existence of the elixir as a mere recovery item that was used in the game. https://handofvecna.blogspot.com, I heard that. A deep voice spoke out among the crowd of people. And the voice was not friendly at all. It was threatening like a sword. Everyone's eyes focused on an unremarkable beastkin warrior that one could see anywhere else. Under everyone's gazes, he distorted and changed into an amorphous liquid. It was like a human-shaped slime. He undulated further before becoming a blue-haired youth with a cold presence. Blue skin with vertically slitted pupils. These were the features of demons, the nemesis of the humanoids. Ah, a demon. What a surprise. To think that an elixir still exists. With such a thing, the wounds of the 7 heroes could be healed. His piercing gaze seemed to look down on everyone present as he spoke in an emotionless voice. Kainko immediately drew his sword and slashed at the demon with a speed that the current Sei could barely follow. The blade swa.n.g down deep into the demon's body, but there was not a single drop of blood. In fact, there was no reaction at all. The body that had been cut simply flowed like water. It's futile. The demon's arm twisted like a whip and sent Kainko flying. His armor was crushed by the single blow and Kainko fell onto the ground without any further movement. As the commander of the soldiers, he must be fairly capable. And yet, with just one blow, too strong. Yes, Sei thought so as his palms became sweaty. Dead? Or just unconscious? No matter. That's what happens when you charge at me without properly gauging your own skills. I hope you get a little smarter in the future. You. The demon's mocking remarks enraged the beastkin soldiers, who simultaneously charged at him with their spears. But it was still ineffective. The spears pierced through as if they were stabbing at water. The demon, who was stabbed, did not even change his expression. Such a pointless act. The demon quickly moved his finger to draw a 5-pointed star in the air. A vessel for firing arcane magic was created. The top point was wood, followed by fire, earth, metal, and water in a clockwise direction. To connect the 5 points according to the principle of mutual generation and mutual destruction, a double circle was drawn to surround the star, representing the moon and the sun. And then, the accu.malated mana was poured into this vessel. Arcane magic? Impossible, this is too fast. The activation of magic was done in 3 basic steps. Create a vessel, then pour in the mana, and finally release the magic. The speed at which these 3 actions were done depended on the skill of the magic user. The higher the skill level, the faster the magic would be released. The ultimate skill was to use magic without actions at all. This was the summit occupied by Migres, Agakeros, and the Demon King. The 7 luminaries of the demons could also use simple magic without actions. In other words, if they needed to draw a seal, it would be a prelude to releasing advanced magic. Apsaras. And then, a huge swan of water was created. In the tent where there was no escape, the magical bird cried out and the tent exploded from the inside. Chapter 79 Water Magic, Apsaras. This skill converted mana into water, transforming it into a ma.s.siv swan made of water to attack the enemies. The biggest feature of this magic was the ability to track targets. The swan could home onto a target up to a certain extent and kill it. Its power, scale, and accuracy were all excellent, but it was a difficult magic to use because of the huge amount of mana required. If a human magic user were to use this skill, he would definitely need several minutes of preparation. Yet this male demon released it so easily. This alone showed how great the difference in power between them were. Force barrier. However, before the swan struck, a wall of light appeared to protect everyone. It was a defensive wall created by Virgo with divine magic. However, it was not easy to defend using a barrier which had been erected in a hurry. Normally, it would have been broken through after sustaining for a while. However, iridescent flames suddenly appeared between the wall and the swan, evaporating all of the water which the wall could not defend against. Then, the iridescent flames immediately changed direction and engulfed the demon's right arm. As all of this happened in an instant, only Virgo and the demon saw what had happened. Tisk. I don't know who, but it seems that a troublesome fellow has sneaked in. I'm not a fool who does not know his limits. I will retreat for now. Looking at his arm that had disappeared with one hit, the demon jumped away and vanished. Ares was clearly able to track the demon's movement, but he chose to not pursue further. It would be easy to chase and defeat him, but the current task A.S. signed by his master was to support Virgo. If he chose to leave the place for a while and something were to happen to her, he would be quite troubled. At any rate, an opponent like that could be erased easily at any time, so there was no need to finish him off in a hurry. He retreated. Looks like it. As SEI was wondering why the enemy mysteriously disappeared, the bikini armor pervert confirmed the situation. The fight was over quickly, but he still understood the difference in power between them and the enemy. Without a doubt, that was no ordinary demon. Realizing this, Kainko fell to the ground and groaned. The refinement and power of that water magic, could he be Mercurius, one of the 7 luminaries? Virgo ran over to Kainko and cast healing divine magic on him. As he felt the pain lessen significantly, his expression softened. Mercurius. Virgo repeated the name and Kainko nodded in response. Although I've only heard rumors, it's been said that among the demon race, there exists a man with a fluid body who can negate all forms of physical attacks directed at him. The guy we fought just now matches that description perfectly. In addition, his refinement of water magic, SE 7 luminaries? You can't be serious, there's no way I'm staying. With that kind of opponent, no matter how many lives you have, it won't be enough. Me too. This ain't a task for adventurers. You should be asking the formally trained soldiers instead. As soon as Kainko confirmed the name of the enemy, a commotion erupted on the spot. Several men refused to predict I.P.8 and walked out of the tent. However, that was inevitable. The 7 luminaries were fearsome invaders from the demon race and were the current nemesis of the humanoids. With only 7 of them, they were able to drive the humanoids into a corner. The very idea of fighting them was weird to begin with. Even though those demons could be defeated by Rupas in one hit, completely powerless against Libra, called weaklings by Agakeros, and considered unworthy of pursuit by Ares, they were still considered a fearsome existence. The abnormal ones were Ruppas and company. This point must not be forgotten. And so, nearly all predict.I.P. ants of the hunting festival fled, leaving behind only 3 people. They were Virgo, SEI, and Aries, who was disguised using the black costume. This is bad. What should we do now? They have a point. I too think that we should send trained soldiers instead of adventurers to the mountain. Kainko was crestfallen over the fact that most of the adventurers fled, but it was not unreasonable for them to flee. After all, they had received neither formal training nor support with the provision of weapons. They were simply outstanding individuals among the common people who hunted magical beasts for a living. Compared to soldiers, their weapons were cheap products that they made do with to get by. Occasionally, there might be some who acquired powerful weapons from ancient ruins, but such individuals were rare. There were no real adventurers who would swing legendary weapons around in the way SEI would see in games. If it was possible, we would have done that. But we can't, and that's why we had to gather adventurers. You can't? What happened? That mountain is a holy place, so there is a holy barrier that keeps magical beasts away. We beastkin are affected by it too. When he heard Kainko's words, SEI recalled what Cruz taught him about the humanoids of this world. Cruz mentioned that the beastkin, which counted among the humanoids, were fundamentally no different from magical beasts. For example, the orcs were basically pig beastkin, to put it bluntly. Both were descended from humans. Both were mutated by mana. Both had animal features. There was practically no difference. Then what was the difference between beastkin and orcs? It was the ability to coexist with other humanoids. Beastkin could coexist, therefore they were considered humanoids. Orcs could not coexist, therefore they were categorized as magical beasts. This was the only difference. In other words, whatever was effective against magical beasts would generally be effective against beastkin as well. But we are fortunate this time. The barrier does not actually repulse magical beasts per se. Instead, it repulses mana. Therefore, it should not be possible for the demons to invade so easily. The elixir will not be taken immediately. Repulses mana. SEI decided to consult with his companions after the meeting regarding this somewhat troublesome barrier. After all, the most powerful person in his party was the sword saint, Friedrich. Since he was a tiger beastkin, it would not be possible to bring their greatest fighting strength along. Meanwhile, Virgo looked at Aries with a worried expression, but Aries gestured that it was okay. In the present world, there were only a few known types of barriers, and the kind of barrier which could stop real monsters like the 12 heavenly stars did not exist. Or rather, there was N.O. Body who could do it. To really stop the 12 heavenly stars, one would need a barrier like the one raised by Alioth in Laevitian. And in all likelihood, although the 7 luminaries would be somewhat affected, they could probably break through the barrier forcefully. In other words, Kainko's deduction was fundamentally wrong. However, Aries chose not to point it out. But we cannot tarry too long either. Since the 7 luminaries now know of the elixir's existence, they would surely find some other way to get to it. Perhaps by brainwas.h.I plus ng humans and so on. So you're saying that we don't have much time left. The situation could not be delayed any further. Without the elixir, the guardian dragon would be lost and this country would be doomed. If the elixir was left alone, the demons might acquire it. SEI made up his mind and started walking towards the tent's exit. Where are you going? Please wait for a while. I need to call my comrades. This was an important battle that would determine the fate of a nation. With that conviction, he chose to gather his comrades immediately. But before he could leave the tent, he saw that his comrades were already gathered outside the tent. On the side, the covert ranger squad gave a thumbs up. It turned out that they had ran to tell his comrades. Looks like it's time for us to act, SEI. Jean smiled broadly and entered the tent. He was followed by Gantz, Cruz, Ricardo, Female Knight, Gorilla, and Tiger. The hero's party had gathered. Even if one saw this a second time, it would still look very cool. Who are you people? I'm the mercenary Gantz, but currently I'm the hero's comrade even though I'm unsuitable for such a task. Well, this is a national issue after all. Although we are not ants of the hunting festival, we could not just stand by and watch. Hearing Gant's name, Kainko widened his eyes. Anyone who had fought in real battles would know of him. If the strongest mercenary appeared, it would be natural to be surprised. But what surprised him even more was the huge bipedal tiger behind Gant's. Oh, you are fried. You have come back. Grr, oh, it really has been a long time. We have heard tales of your brave exploits. Gah. Ah, she's fine. You can meet her later. Gura. If you are that worried, just confess already. You can't keep her waiting forever. Ah, sorry. Please speak in a language we can understand. Friedrich and Kainko were conversing, but SEI had no idea what they were talking about. N.O. Body could blame him for his involuntarily loud interruption. Then, the female knight came forth and translated Friedrich's words. Apparently, that cat Beastkin is the squad leader's elder brother. Since it is a long-awaited reunion, they just started chatting. Brothers. SEI exclaimed involuntarily and then compared the two. Kainko was a cat Beastkin about 130 centimeters tall. Friedrich, on the other hand, was a tiger Beastkin over 2.5 meters tall. The size difference was like that of a cat and a tiger. It was difficult to believe that they came from the same womb. Noticing SEI's gaze, Kainko rubbed his face with his paw in embarrassment. Oh, we don't look like brothers, right? People often say that. I take after my father, while Friedrich takes after our mother. I don't think that's the problem right now. One could not help but wonder what kind of couple would produce brothers like that. The ecology of Beastkin was really mysterious. It was too early to accept them as siblings, but there was no time for such persuasion right now. After discussing for a while, they finally held hands tightly. It seems that the discussion has concluded. We are allowed to accompany them. The discussion between Friedrich and Kainko ended with the permission for the hero's companions to come along. At such times, the names of the sword saint and the hero proved useful. This was a party consisting of the hero and the sword saint who was the pride of the country. If they rejected this, they would not find a stronger team. The party decided to aim for Hnitbjorg with everyone present. Then let me guide you. Come with me, brave ones. Sagittarius https://handofvecna.blogspot.com The vast gra.s. Land of Dropnir. Here, Libra and Karkanos walked on in their task to find the archer. Having said that, only Libra was searching for the most part. Karkanos was hardly useful at all. Libra searched the surroundings and eventually found and picked up an object. It was an arrow. Back then, this was the weapon that killed the dinosaur before Libra could snipe it. It was probably shot by the archer. This was not useful in itself. However, by examining the angle of the fallen arrow, the position where it was fired could be estimated. Libra's eyes moved rapidly as numbers indicating the angle, wind direction, and air resistance danced across her vision. Eventually, one spot in her vision was chosen as the candidate and marked with a circle. Of course, all of these things were only visible to her. There was no actual marker attached to that spot. Is it over there? It was closer than expected. That was Libra's first impression. If it was the archer, he could have been further away. It was not impossible for him to shoot from a distance that was much further than from here. Yet the most likely location was very close. It was just a bit further from the commentary box for the hunting festival. Thus, that was the next spot to examine. The archer must have erased his tracks, but it would not be possible for complete erasure. Slight footprints on the ground. Trampled gra.s. Fallen body hair. As long as such things existed, Libra could use these clues to find the next clue. Let's go, Karkanos. Yes. With the totally useless Karkanos, Libra headed for the next clue. After this, she would just repeat the process until she found the archer himself. There was almost nothing more difficult than getting away from her once she started tracking someone. Even if it was one of the 12 heavenly stars, there would be no exception. Chapter 80. There were clues leading to the archer left behind in various places. Libra felt suspicious as she followed the clues. As they led closer and closer to the archer, Libra's suspicions became convictions. There was no doubt about it, this trail was intentionally left behind. It was devised to such an extent that an ordinary person probably would not realize it, but if it was Libra, she would definitely put the pieces together. She did not know his intentions, but it seemed that the other party was specifically looking for her. In that case, there was no other way. She would have to accept the invitation and ask him about his true intentions. There were no signs of traps. After analyzing the terrain, temperature, and sound within a radius of several kilometers, she was certain that no traps had been set. The archer was an expert hunter. Although Libra would not lose at a long range, the archer's true skills lay in the abundant knowledge of utilizing the terrain to set up traps. Furthermore, it was his role to compensate for offensive arcane magic which Rapaz was bad at. In fact, his favored form of attack was actually arcane magic, not arrows. Therefore, his reason for using an actual arrow was none other than to leave a clue. However, Libra did not choose to return. If she chose to return now in order to call Rapaz and allowed the archer to get away, everything they had done up to this point would go down the drain. If he seriously tried to get away, it would be difficult even for Libra to find him. Given his mobility, it would be easy for him to leave the capital while she was returning to Rapaz. Since the other party was practically inviting her, she might as well just follow through with it. Having decided thus, Libra continued to follow the clues along with Carcino's. Faint footprints, traces of trampled grass, and body hair fallen in the undergrowth. Even with just a handful of such clues, Libra could accurately arrive at the destination. After searching for a while, she came to a dense forest. There were many objects to provide cover. This was the favored battlefield of the archer. You have come, Libra. Sagittarius. As she turned towards the sound of the voice, there was a young man standing there. It was the commentator for the hunting festival, a man named Chiron. However, this was just an illusion created by arcane magic. Seeing through the illusion, Libra called out his name without hesitation. Hearing her response, the archer Sagittarius smiled in satisfaction and shook his arm. Then, the man vanished and was replaced by a half-man, half-horse magical beast. The lower body was a horse, while the upper body was a muscular man. This was the true form of Sagittarius. His black hair was cut to a flat top, while thick eyebrows framed his sharp eyes which were hidden behind sunglasses. He had the dignity of a skilled hunter. With a cigar in his mouth and an unshaven beard, he looked to be in his late 40s by human standards. He was wearing a full-body robe. Libra knew it was an item which was created and given to him by Rapaz. Its effect was by no means great. It did not improve defense much and did not grant resistance to any attribute or abnormal status. However, it could change color to blend into the surroundings. It was a great equipment for stealth, but it was useless before Libra, who could locate a creature by its breathing and heat signature. How unusual! For you to reveal yourself like this, when you rarely ever show yourself to others. You once said, to be the ideal hunter is to hunt the prey down before they realize they are being hunted. You almost never show yourself even to your allies. For someone who kills enemies from afar like a shadow, your current behavior is really puzzling. Although both Sagittarius and Libra were long-range attackers, there was a difference in their approaches. Libra's approach was to seek and destroy. She was a slaughtering machine that chased down the enemy relentlessly, overwhelming him with Ma.S.Civ firepower. In other words, despite being a long-range attacker, it was Libra's style to proactively engage on her enemies without reservation. Her long-range attacks were not meant to fight the enemy at a distance, but rather to finish off a fleeing enemy or to cut off an escape route. Sagittarius, on the other hand, was the opposite. His race, the centaur, was the perfect sniper who kept a distance from the enemy with its high mobility while continuously attacking the enemy from his blind spot. Libra would start with a warning, letting the enemy recognize her so as to incite fear and pressure. However, Sagittarius would not do this. Without warning, he would take down a defenseless foe with one shot. He was basically an A.S.S.A.S.Sin. Libra was a professional combatant, but he was different. He was a professional killer. Someone like him, whenever he appeared before others, he would always disguise himself to hide his true form. Yet he was appearing like this now. This was what puzzled Libra. Did he appear like this because he did not feel threatened in the presence of comrades? No, if that was the case, he would have appeared before Rupas directly. But since he did not do so, his appearance before Libra was unlikely to be a matter of come, let's be comrades once more. The current me have neither the right nor the face to appear before Rupasama. That's why I called for you. I can assume from those words that you are undertaking an action that is unfavorable to the interest of the master. It's fine if you take it to mean that way. But first, I want you to listen to me. The eyes of Libra and Sagittarius met and sparks flew. Carcanos, who was completely left out and unable to intrude in this atmosphere, could only sit down and lean against a tree in boredom. After all, he was a person who could serve no other purpose besides being as.h.I+eld. I'm currently working with Leon. With that traitor? Let me hear your reason. Before she even verified the truth, Libra was already holding a machine gun in her hands. The implication was that she would shoot depending on the answer. However, Sagittarius' expression did not change. It was an iron mask comparable to a golem like Libra. There is almost no difference between beastkin and magical beasts, yet we centaurs are classified as magical beasts. Do you know why? Because centaurs are not bipedal. The definition of humanoids in this world uses humans as a base form. While there could be some appendages like wings, humanoids are defined as creatures that can coexist with humans without being too different in shape. To be more precise, those who were created to resemble the G.O.Dis are labeled humanoids. Therefore, if one's form deviates too much from the base form, it cannot be considered humanoid. This is why you centaurs are not considered humanoids. Merfolk are classified as magical beasts for the same reason. Indeed, but we centaurs do not abduct women like orcs and we do not actively attack people. We just live our lives quietly. Centaurs can coexist with humans. And yet we are viewed with hostility, merely because we are considered magical beasts. Centaurs were gentle and thoughtful magical beasts. In a way, their calm and intelligent nature made them more suitable to be considered a civilized race than some humanoids such as the beastkin. In fact, the elves honored them as sages of the forest. They were intelligent, quiet, and gentle. Although there were rare exceptions like Sagittarius, centaurs were basically pacifistic creatures that posed no danger to anyone. However, they were seen with hostility by humanoids other than elves and were even attacked in certain situations. This was because the humanoids were taught to consider all magical beasts as dangerous in the current world. I've been thinking that I want to change the current world. And now I have a reason to do so. So you've decided to side with Leon? Yes. If he controls the world, the rights of the magical beasts will be improved. The situation of centaurs will be in a much better state than it is right now. You have changed, Sagittarius. As I recall, you were not the type of person to care about such things. I have certainly changed, after all, it has been 200 years. I can't be the kind of person I used to be anymore. Now, I have something that I want to protect. Leon was a deviant among the 12 heavenly stars since he had the ambition to replace Rupas and the Demon King as ruler of the world. If he took over the world, the rights of magical beasts would certainly improve. But in that scenario, what awaited was a future without wisdom or civilization, one in which only the fittest would survive. There would be days of nothing except killing and eating. The world would regress to what it was without the wisdom of the humanoids, filled with only beasts and dinosaurs. This was not the future envisioned by Rupas. Leon does not have the attributes of a king. At best, that man can be the leader of a mob. Have you gotten to the point where you can't even see that anymore? I know that. I'm planning to stand beside him and make up for the wisdom that he lacks. No, you don't get it. That man will not listen to your advice. Considering he lives only by his instinct and desires, that man's nature is truly that of a magical beast. Libra pointed her machine gun at Sagittarius and then announced in an emotionless voice. Warning. It will be fine if you return to the Master now. If you still side with Leon, you will be regarded as a threat and be eliminated. I'm sorry, but I have already decided. If it's for the sake of those children, I will do anything. Even if I have to choose a road that opposes Rappa-sama. Sagittarius roared and drew his bow. What was unleashed was not a real arrow, but an arcane magic composed of a burning red flame. Sagittarius' affiliated attribute was wood, so normally he was not a terrifying opponent for Libra. However, the bow that Rappas gave him 200 years ago was troublesome. Its effect changed the attribute of the magic that was used. Its name was Cosmedia. It was the only bow in the world that could always strike at the target's weakness. In other words, the absolute advantage that Libra had in this matchup was completely negated by the bow. Well then, Carcino's barrier. What's? Libra quickly grabbed the nearby Carcinos and used him to deflect the incoming magical arrow. Although Carcinos was useless except for being as.h.I plus Eld, he was the best among the 12 heavenly stars in terms of defense. Although the usage gave off a sense of wrongness, Libra harmlessly blocked Sagittarius' first attack by using Carcinos as as.h.I plus Eld. Hostile intentions towards Master confirmed. This recla.s.siffies Sagittarius as an enemy. Proceeding with elimination. She squeezed the trigger of the machine gun and fired a scattering of rounds. But Sagittarius quickly took cover among the trees, evading the incoming bullets. He had probably predicted this development. Libra quickly changed her weapon from a machine gun to a rifle, grabbed Carcinos, and chased after Sagittarius. The alliance of Sagittarius and Leon was troubling. If he was not eliminated here, it would become an obstacle to her master. Libra charged forward, using Carcinos as as.h.I plus Eld to block incoming magic fired from between the trees. She used Carcinos to deflect the ma.s.ses of flames flying overhead. No. The water arrows shot from between the trees was blocked by Carcinos. Stop. He was used to step on the earthen spears coming forth from the ground. Carcinos was thrown to deflect the incoming metallic arrows. Oh my g.o.d. She recovered Carcinos and accelerated, s.h.I plus Elding herself behind Carcinos as she charged towards the wall of fire that appeared ahead. And so she broke through the wall and emerged from the flames. Help me! Carcinos screamed every time he encountered magic, even though it was a rare opportunity where he could play a role. Libra shut him up, told him to endure it, then aimed her rifle at Sagittarius. And she fired. A continuous stream of homing bullets created by Rappa's shot at Sagittarius. Of course, she was not merely aiming straight at him. Some of them were fired to cause intentional ricochets, while others were fired to knock down the trees before Sagittarius to cut off his escape routes. However, Sagittarius evaded all of the bullets and said under a falling tree before it could block him. As expected of centaurs, which were proud of their leg power. She wanted to use Astrea and finish this in one go, but it could not be used without Rappa's permission. In other words, in a situation where she could not contact Rappa's, she must eliminate Sagittarius with her own power. Libra said the rifle to Carcinos and released the mechanism on her right arm. Skill selection. Unlock limiter on right arm. The right scale, Zubin el Janubi, release. As she made her declaration, her right arm changed into a cannon and she aimed it at Sagittarius, who was fleeing ahead. In Libra's field of vision, his heat source was displayed, thereby ignoring the effects of Sagittarius' camouflage robe. A circular marker overlapped with the words lock on that spot. Accuracy 62%, fire. The muzzle emitted violet electrical sparks. Upon firing, the recoil blew away the plants behind Libra. And a flash of light was released towards Sagittarius, blowing away all of the trees and obstacles in between. However, Sagittarius dodged marginally and avoided a direct hit. Even so, the attack had opened the way to Sagittarius. Libra accelerated using the vernier thrusters on her back, becoming a bullet herself that sped towards Sagittarius. And then, with her steel head, She bashed into Sagittarius' face.